Hey, Neatards Friends Church. I always take a swig of something before we get started when we're gathered for a normal sermon. So I'm taking a swig of something before we get started. These Sundays, while we aren't gathered, we really are learning the meaning of our gathered times. I don't believe that any video can really be a substitute for what it is when we're all gathered and everything that experience encompasses for all of us. And that's why today I want to encourage you once again to gather the people that you do have, gather your family, gather your people in your household to watch this video together, or if you live on your own, to call a friend and have them find this video and watch it with you. Because once again, I hope that the best parts of this time are not watching me. I hope that the best parts are when you pause the video and when you express what's going on with you and what your thoughts are, when you share the conversation with one another. Today we're talking about work. COVID-19 has changed our work. For some of us, we are trying to work from home. For some of us, we're trying to work from home while caring for children. For some of us, we're trying to work from home while caring for children. But really, the bulk of what we're doing is trying to care for children. For some of us, we are still expected to be at our place of work, but it's a completely different experience. For some of us, we're still expected to be at our place of work, but we're also trying to figure out how we're going to care for our children. For healthcare workers, the weight of the whole going to work thing feels like a risk, I'm certain. For some people, you have twice as much work going on right now. You're trying to figure out new strategies, new technology, new everything. For others, you suddenly have almost nothing to do or way less, and you're trying to figure out, what am I doing with myself? Some of us are uncertain about our place of business. Will there be any work when this is all over? Will I have to find a new source of income? Some of you are retired. The majority of your work may have already been at home, but this still presents some changes for you. For those of you who are children or teenagers, it's possible that your parents have this strange idea of giving you homework during this time. So, here's the question. It's the first question for you all at home. It is, what has been the biggest adjustment for you related to changes in your work or changes in the work of a loved one, your parents or grandparents or someone else? So go ahead, pause the video, and discuss that with one another. Go ahead, pause the video now. All right. Oh, that wonderful thing, work. That thing that we spend most of our waking hours doing, the thing that stresses us out or causes us to lose sleep, the thing that never stops demanding something from us, but we depend upon our survival is dependent upon it. For some people, it feels like a prison sentence. For others, it's their place of escape because of how stressful things are at home. During these days of so much change and uncertainty, you may find yourself thinking a lot about your work. Why do I work? Do I like my work? Can I keep up with this? Will I have any work? Our lives are shaped by the stories that we believe and the stories that we tell ourselves. And so I want to invite you to take a step back from those immediate questions about work and to consider another question about work, which is, what's the story that I believe about my work and about work in general. So, to do that, we're going to look at a few ancient stories about work, two of them. And as I tell you these stories, I want you to be thinking about how would I feel if this was the story that I believed about my work. So get ready. This first story is going to sound like a Marvel comic story. It's called the Enuma Elish. It's an ancient Babylonian creation story. Comes from Mesopotamian mythology. It's the story of the battle between Marduk, who's the sky god, and Tiamat, the water goddess, this sea dragon of chaos. The introduction of the story, to set it up without making it real long, is that the water goddess Tiamat had formed an entire army, and she was bent on destroying all of the rest of the gods. Now, Marduk had been identified as the god who might be able to destroy Tiamat. So the rest of the gods didn't get destroyed. But before Marduk just said, okay, I will take her on, he made a deal with the rest of the gods. He said, okay, if I fight Tiamat and I destroy Tiamat, then I'm the boss. I'm the head god forever. And they said, yes, we agree. So a deal was struck, and Marduk set out to battle Tiamat and the rest of her army. Marduk was armed with bow and arrows, with a thunder club, with a storm net, with a lightning dagger. Sounds like Marvel Comics, huh? Tiamat was armed with a magical scream, killed her opponents. So, Marduk had to overcome Tiamat's army just to make it to Tiamat. And so for days this battle is raging, and finally Marduk has Tiamat trapped. And he throws his storm net over her, and Tiamat turns, and she's about to unleash one of her screams that would kill Marduk. But as she opens her mouth to scream, Marduk shoots her with an arrow, and Tiamat dies. Now, Marduk takes Tiamat's body and splits her up and uses her bones to create the earth, and uses the other half of her body to form the heavens. And the other gods say to Marduk, they say, well, Marduk, now that you've created earth, you're going to have a lot of work on your hands just to keep this up. And Marduk laughs. He just says, I'll use the blood of one of the worst of Tiamat's warriors, her fallen warriors, to create lowly humans, lowly creatures. And I'll make the humans do all of that work. The humans can take care of it. And so it came to pass, according to this story, that the lowly humans were created to do all of the work that the gods didn't want to do. Created out of the blood of the losers, and the gods scorned the humans for their work. Now, here's the question you get to answer at home. So, it's the Marduk and Tiamat question. If that was the story that you believed about your work, how would you feel about your work? How would you feel about going to work every day? So go ahead, pause the video, have that conversation now. Go ahead, pause the video. All right, now let's look at another creation story that emerged in the ancient Near East. So this story, as you might guess, comes from the book of Genesis. What if this story was the story that actually shaped the way that you thought about your work? So the story begins with Yahweh working. It doesn't begin with humans working. It begins with Yahweh working. And Yahweh is working to shape chaos, whatever is formless, into a shape and into creation. And as the story goes, Yahweh wants co-workers to work with him in this project. And so the book of Genesis actually tells us, Genesis 2:5, that there was no one to work the ground. Now, that's a funny statement because, wait a minute, Yahweh created this entire thing. Can't Yahweh work the ground? Yahweh created humans in the story who could partner with him to be his co-workers. He didn't only create one human. Here, buddy, go do all the work. He created two so that they could work in partnership not only with him but with one another. And he put the humans in the Garden of Eden, and we are told, Genesis 2:15, he put them there to work it, to care for it, which is to be stewards of it. And then Yahweh also gave them and celebrated this other ability. He gave them the ability to partner with him in creating more humans. Be fruitful, multiply. So Yahweh's not just looking for humans to do the work so that Yahweh doesn't have to do the work. Yahweh is looking for co-creators. He creates co-creators. Like, I don't want to be the only one creating here. We are created in the image of God, we are told. And so he creates more creators. Something very special, this partnership. And so these humans enter into Yahweh's rhythms of work and rest, Sabbath. And in this story, all of this work happens before evil has entered the story. The entire story is good. So work is good, and creativity and creation is good, and partnership is good, and stewardship is good. Now, considering the Yahweh story, what if this was the story, the primary story that you told yourself and that you believed about work? How would you feel about going to work every day? And how is that different from the Marduk and Tiamat story? So go ahead, pause the video, have that conversation. Go ahead, pause the video now. All right. Over and over in the New Testament, we are named as God's co-workers. The idea is we work together with God for the good. God works together with us for the good. And our work is a way that we actually unite with God and a way that we join what God is doing in this world. It's a way that we serve those around us, our community. Saint Benedict saw this link between our work and God's work in such a way that he put it into this concise statement. He said, to work is to pray. It's kind of a amazing statement. Wow. Now, maybe you say, yeah, that link doesn't work for me because it's not like I'm going to work in the Garden of Eden every day. Like, we're a long ways from home, Toto. My job is frustrating. Maybe that's what you say. Like, besides all of the changes from COVID, there's all the pre-existing stuff, like coworkers who complain, or they're know-it-alls, or work tasks that you just say, I could care less about this. I am so bored with this. I have no passion for this. Or people who micromanage you, or there's just a lack of communication within your workspace, or a lot of conflict going on, or you just have too much to do, or there's challenging decisions to be made. And so, whatever your dynamics, it's really easy to get to this place where we say, yeah, maybe back when work was good, but I'm not living in Eden anymore. And so I'm living in this world where it's like whatever was good about my work got stirred up in a big pot with all of this evil, all these evil systems and motivations in this world. And so now I go to work every day and I just struggle to see the good in the midst of so much other evil in the midst. And so that can be really challenging. How are we supposed to find this way between feeling frantic and overwhelmed about our work, or just giving up on it, being lazy, being like, there's really nothing good here anyways, I don't care. How are we supposed to find the way between there? Well, I want to introduce you to a prayer, and I want to call it the unless prayer. It's an old prayer. You can find it in Psalm 127. I'd encourage you to read it here a little later. It's a prayer that pilgrims said to one another and with one another as they were on the journey to Jerusalem to worship. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine this group of pilgrims, and they're walking along the dusty path. They've left their work. Carpenters, watchmen, civil servants, fishermen, merchants, bakers, parents, farmers. They've left their work and they're walking together. And as they walk, one of the carpenters cries out. He says, loudly, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. The watchmen, the civil servants call back. They say, unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. The fishermen and the merchants and the bakers, they call out in response. They say, in vain you rise up early and stay up late. And the farmers join in, toiling for food to eat. And then the entire caravan joins in with one voice, and they say, for God grants sleep to those he loves. That's Psalm 127, the beginning of it. What are these people praying? What are they reminding themselves of? Are they saying, well, when I get home, I'm not going to build anymore. I'm not going to stand watch. I'm not going to farm. I'm not going to get up early because this is God's job. Like, if the house is going to get built, God's going to have to do it because I'm not doing it. Is that what they're saying? Or are they trying to twist God's wrist? God, you're going to have to do this because I can't. Is that what they're doing? Or are they doing something else? They're recognizing that their life is a joint project with God. And they're recognizing, yeah, when I get home, I'm still going to do my stuff. I'm going to go build. I'm going to watch. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to toil. But they're recognizing the unless factor, which is the safety and the security and the well-being of this world is not entirely up to me. Our work is in partnership with God. That's what they're recognizing. It's the unless factor. It's we are working together with God for the good. unless. Now that's a scary prayer to pray because it involves admitting that I can't do it all on my own. It's admitting that all of my work, all of my best efforts really do need God's partnership if they're going to turn out for good. It's kind of scary to admit that. So I want to invite you to do one more activity. We're going to make our own unless prayer. And then the second part is I'm going to invite you to get outside sometime this week and make this prayer a rhythm, something that you say and pray quietly and out loud, and hopefully with your family, with your people, if you are able to do that. But we're going to start by just filling in the blanks. So here are the blanks. You are going to, first of all, you got 3 blanks here, so you're going to have to pause the video. The first one is just name your project, name your goal. So what is it that you have been giving a whole lot of time and energy to lately? What is that thing? You might name a few, but do at least one. And then secondly, you need to name your role or your title. So your work might be, I'm trying to keep my children healthy and happy, but your title is parent. And then finally, number 3 is name a moment when your batteries felt like they were being recharged lately. So go ahead, pause the video, and fill in those 3 blanks. Tell one another the way that you would answer those questions. Go ahead, pause the video now. Okay, so now that you've answered those questions, you get to take those answers and put them into the format of this prayer. The format of this prayer, as you may have already figured this out, but it is this. It's unless the Lord, and then you name your project, your goal, the thing it is you've been trying to do. Unless the Lord, and then you name your title, your role, and you say, works in vain. So here's my example. One of them would be, unless the Lord leads the church through the time of COVID-19, the pastors labor in vain. Their efforts are worthless. So go ahead, pause the video, and fill in those blanks. Say your statement so far in a complete sentence. Okay. Did that feel weird? Did you feel like you were calling your efforts worthless? Or let's say we did it for healthcare workers. Unless the Lord helps us through COVID-19, the healthcare workers, what they do is in vain. You could look at a statement like that and be like, ugh, that sounds gross. I think that's missing what the prayer is getting at. Because what it's trying to get at is that this project, whatever this project is, this work, it's not completely on my shoulders. That's what it's trying to say. It's God, this is Romans 8:28. It's God is working for the good along with us, along with those who love God and are called according to his purposes. So that's what it's saying. This isn't completely on my shoulders. I am a co-worker with God. But we can't stop the prayer there because remember, there's the battery recharge part, and we got to fill that out. So it's for God grants sleep to those he loves. And if your body's struggling to sleep, please please don't think God loves you less. But how did you answer that battery recharging question? I want to ask you to fill in this part of the prayer. For God grants, and then fill in the way you answered that question, to those he loves. Accept that battery recharge as a gift of God's love. So go ahead, pause the video, and share that final part of the prayer with one another. Okay, so to sum up, a way that I would say, there's many ways I would say this prayer, but one of them would be, unless the Lord keeps my children healthy and happy through COVID-19, the parents labor in vain. For the Lord grants sleep and hikes to those he loves. That'd be a way that I would say the prayer. And just to make a rhythm of that as I go through the week. So, final project. I want to invite all of you throughout this week to get outside and stop your work to pray this prayer. The people who prayed this in Psalm 127 had stopped their work, they were on a journey to worship, and they prayed this prayer, the unless prayer. So I want to invite you to find moments when you can get outside and pray the unless prayer. And I pray that as you do so, you feel a weight coming off of your shoulders, because God is right there with you. You are God's co-worker, and you are working with God, and God is working with you. And so when we say we're in this together, we start to see that in that larger framework. So, love you, Neat Tarts Friends Church. God bless you. Hope you have a wonderful Sabbath.